the data is restored.
Please have a seat again, because we would like to continue this session. Can we close the doors so that there's not too much hot air coming in? Okay, thank you for coming back. I think everybody was really so engaged in this meeting, and we are also getting very positive feedback from our YouTube channel, where we live streaming. And people are really very happy that we are live streaming this, and amazed by the conversations we're having. So, for our next presentation, we have Juan Carlos Cruz, who is a wildlife biologist working with ecology and conservation of both marine and terrestrial species. He is the scientific director of the initiative Ancestral Tides by the Amazon Conservation Team. Thank you, Juan Carlos. The floor is yours.
Thank you everyone for the invitation. I want to give a brief presentation, very mostly visual and with some numbers so you understand what this initiative is about. You will see that it is a little bit different from a common C-Turtle project, in the sense that, as my colleague Frank was explaining before, we have based this into a collaboration between ancestral knowledge and traditional knowledge with Western science. And I think we combine it very well, and it has worked out very well. Our initiative is Ancestral Tides. However, we work for an organization that is called the Amazon Conservation Team, and as the name stands for, they primarily work or started working in the Amazon basin with several indigenous communities. So this is an indigenous community-based conservation organization, and it is different because it is, as my colleague mentioned, it is based on the needs of indigenous communities, which they invite us to collaborate in many ways that we can offer. So it is a kind of different approach for conservation. I am a biologist and I'm a science person. I grew up like this, I was formed like this in academia. And when you grow up with this mindset, you only think that there's one, or there's very limited information, and there's many ways of doing conservation. Right, so conservation with indigenous communities that ACT does is basically with a different approach. They help them conserve their way of living. They help them conserve their territory. They have authority and to be independent. And by doing that, automatically, by reverse, within that territory it is conserved. Because one simple reason, the indigenous communities have done it for thousands of years, because they're solely survival depend on that. They cannot give them the chance to use those resources because their whole survival depend on that. That's the main difference. This is a representation of what Ancestral Tides looks like. It is, as I said, done by the communities. This is a representation of all the sites that we have. From left to right, we have the cities, the Comcac from the desert of Sonora, Mexico, northern with the USA. Then we have the two ladies from Putumayo, Amazon, Colombian Amazon, and the man in white is one of the spiritual leaders from Colombia, the Sierra Nevada. Then we have the people, the Gunas, and we have the Emberas, both from Panama, Caribbean, and Pacific. So this is a little bit how diverse we are. But of course, we are a group of different professionals in ACT. Our main office is in Washington, but then we have several different offices in the continent, including one here in Paramaribo in Suriname. This is what our study site looks like, a map that we work in looks like. So as I mentioned, we start by far north in Mexico, and then we go all the way through Central America. Costa Rica is our headquarters. This is our base because this is where we started. Osa Peninsula, highly biodiverse. I will get to that place in a bit. And then we have to make it a little bit bigger because, Central America is quite small. But that's a lot of things happening in there. We have Panama with 3 sites,
and then Colombia in the Caribbean as well. Do we have any Colombian here today? No? Oh, okay, we used to have now. We started only 6 years ago, almost 7 years ago, in one single beach that is called Preciosa Beach. I mean, it would be translated to beautiful beach, and it is beautiful. But it's not only beautiful, but it is very rich in biodiversity, in land and in the coast. And it turns out that even though there are not indigenous communities per se in this particular place, there are still some indigenous communities in Costa Rica. I just made a test and you failed. I was asking you from Colombia, right? From which part? From Bogota. Okay, because Ancestral Tides works in one of the sites. One of our sites is in Sierra Nevada and in the coast. So when we started with this beach, we started as a regular sea turtle project, just walking the beach up and down, collecting scientific data. Anyone has ever done it, which helps to keep a record and do monitoring. And we found out that slowly we were finding out that we had olive ridley. Okay, everybody knows olive ridley is the most common, I think, species in the world, the less threatened species, and the only one with the biggest spectacle in nature, the arribada, like when they come at the same time to nest. And then we found out later that we had also green turtle, which is more endangered, right? So it was like position the place in a bigger importance, ecologically speaking. And then we found the most critical endangered species that we have had in the Pacific of the whole continent, the hawksbill. This is really what made us go doing extra efforts in that. And the threats, believe it or not, are the same threats that we face all over Latin America. Nest poaching for human consumption, for for people to sell and buy, and animal predation, feral dogs, and also some other species that are native, like raccoons and coatis. But in the whole initiative right now, we have 5 species. In all the different sites that I showed you in the map, we also work with the loggerhead and the leatherback, which is also an addition to our species list. This is what Costa Rica looks like. It's in the middle of Central America. We have above Nicaragua, and below it's Panama. It's really close to South America in that way. So we started in the Red Point, Preciosa Beach, as I mentioned, and it was so rich that we started to look in the neighboring beaches, and we were like, when you don't want to do something, but you kind of have to, like, okay, let's see what's going below, and then we kept going, and we found like great numbers, and we started increasing our area of working that much and that fast that in 2 years, we had covered more than 100 kilometers, right, in the whole Osa Peninsula. It doesn't seem too much, because Costa Rica is really small, and it's really hard to get. This is just some numbers to show you how important this site is. When we started in 2019, we covered just one beach, and we recorded 13 nests of hawksbill. And then we gradually were increasing our size of research, and of course, we were getting like bigger and bigger. 2020, 40, and so on. Until last year that we broke the record, well, they broke the record, not us, with 83 nests of hawksbill, which probably if you are not very related to the sea turtle world doesn't seem much, but in the Pacific, having more than 5 nests, it's a big thing. And it's something really funny happened to us because the IUCN, the regional office, contacted us. They contacted us yearly to get the data from us, and then they published the regional article, publication of results. And so this guy said, hey, that was in 2020, and he said, Juan Carlos, how many, I want to have a list of the different nesting per species, and I sent him that. And he replied my email and said, I think you made a mistake. It's a typo. It says 40 for hawksbill. What is 4 or 0? And I said, no, it's 40. And he called me right away. What's going on? They had never seen that many numbers in so many years. We have now the most important nesting site for the whole Pacific of Costa Rica, in one of the top 5 in the whole continent. Which is important for us is show the impact in conservation. 6 years ago, before we started, there was no one doing anything in these beaches. And it's so difficult because, as many other researchers were speaking before, you need great amount of resources, not only funding, but also people. You need a lot of training, you need a lot of things. Sea turtle project, the operation is huge, as probably you all know, like working with sea turtles. So it is difficult to get there. But if you do it right, you can get a big impact. In all of these different years working, we have achieved a 95 hatching success. That means that almost entirely of the number of eggs that we relocate in our hatchery hatch successfully, it can go back to the ocean. Not like this for all the projects. We have heard of other projects that have much more nesting than we do, probably up to 600 nests a year, but they have only 40% hatching success. So we're working with those, and that is some of the networking that we were speaking about, right? Not only to get funding, but also to help each other, like to say, okay, what are we doing good that we can teach you so you can do better? Just some of the effect of being in a beach. You know, when we started, there was almost 90% of predation. That means that 90% of the nests that were naturally occurring in that beach were lost because of poaching, because of feral dogs, because of predation, basically. So just by being on the beach constantly every day and getting, spreading the word about this project, people were reluctant to go freely, openly, to go and take the nest anymore. And if you add to this with, enforcement on protection and just being constant, we reduce the predation almost to nothing. By 2021, we had less than 15%. And right now, I think it's like close to 0, 1 or 2%. So that helps a lot too. This is some just raw numbers of what you can expect in a regular year. This was 2023. That was a good year. Not the best, but it was a good year. So you can see that the impact that we're having is really big. More than 70,000 hatchings, right, released in that year. And olive brindle and green is good, but look at the numbers of hawksbill, right? Almost 8,000 hatchlings of hawksbill. And remember, this is the most threatened species of sea turtle that we have in the whole Pacific. How do we do this? It's very important, as everybody here has mentioned, environmental education. Not only to give them talks, but bring the kids, bring the people, bring the locals who before this had never seen a sea turtle, not only babies, but adults, to see them. And that really is a game changing. We bring them to our hatchery, we explain to them all the process, and it's more like environmental education. We think it's biological education, right? Because we're learning more than just the importance of it. You're learning the facts. And then your brain and your person will do the rest. It will go through this information and it will process it differently. So the kids are not told, hey, don't kill a turtle. The kids are told, look how marvelous this creature is and how bold it is and how fierce it is. And then they make their own conclusion, which is normally for the good. We also have a strong project in restoring all the nesting sites that have lost their characteristics. As you can see, or probably hawksbill and green turtle, for example, they need a specific characteristic for nesting. They don't nest in the open area. They need some areas with cover, vegetation cover, with canopy, with some shading. That, of course, has the influence probably on temperature. But they do that. So we have some areas that are really good for these species, but suddenly the next areas are ranches, cattle ranches, or some kind of that the natural vegetation was removed. So they don't go and nest in there. First, because they don't have the condition, and mostly because since there are no big trees to hold soil, there is actually no beach. It's just a big step, of 1 meter, 2 meters that the turtles cannot even pass by. So we do strongly work on that. And we collect the seeds ourselves. Sometimes we buy them from local families that they do this for us. So it's in a way, as Nina was mentioning, we're also helping some families to start an economy for this. And then we go with native species of seeds, with native species of trees, and plant into these and take care of them for the next years. Because a small tree is like a baby, depending on how strong it is. You need to take care of it until it's independent. But this is important. So probably we won't see the effect of these in the next 5 years. But the kids and the new generation will see it in the next 10, 15, 20 years. Talking about networking, and it is important for us to recognize that, okay, we're working on the beaches. We've been told before, it is important to do conservation on the nesting grounds. But what happens when our turtles leave those beaches? Can we still protect them? Can we still know where to go? How can we have a full protection of it? So hopefully, as we always say, we never come up with an idea. The turtles give us the tips. They give us the next step. Do this, right? So in 2018, a group of biologists from Panama. This green line on the yellow line, sorry, is dividing Costa Rica and Panama. That is right at the border. And what you can see here, Coba Island, is a national park where a sea turtle for Hawksbill Sea Turtle Project, has been happening for the last 14, 15 years. They do a different approach. They capture them in the water because Coiba Island is one of the most renowned feeding areas for hawksbill. So hawksbill from all over the place, God knows who, God knows where, because we really don't know where they come from. They come to feed because of the rocky area, because of the corals. It's a really hot spot for conservation because they feed in there, and probably they reproduce in there as well. So they capture them in the water. They capture any size. They capture, males, females, you name it. And then they tag them as well, the same way that other projects do it on sand. They put them metallic tags with a specific number, a specific email, and then they release them back. One hawksbill turtles that we tagged in the Osa Peninsula in 2016 was captured by these biologists in 2018, 2 years later, and it was not one of their tags, so they just saw our tag, and it was like, oh, who are these guys? So they called us, we made a connection, and for the first time, we found a place that was connected to us, that it was not on the sand, right? That it was not a nesting ground. It was where they feed. So this is how we started a collaboration with them. We joined the group of researchers. We visited them. We learned from them what they do. Actually, they trained us how to trap, how to capture the sea turtles on the water, and now we can do it ourselves. And this is the networking we're talking about. It's not only funding. It's not only, it's sharing knowledge. It's supporting each other. And that gave us the idea to explore more, because if we had this beach that it was so important and was there in front of the village for so many years and nobody knew it was important, there should be more of these sites all over the Pacific coast, especially in Central America. So we embarked in a hawksbill route, we call it, trying to emulate the travel that this turtle must have done from the Osa Peninsula to Coiba National Park, but stopping in all of the islands, in all of the beaches, doing a rapid assessment. How good were theirs potential nesting site for the hawksbill? So we did that for 2 years. And on the way, we were able also to start with some tagging of hawksbill. Oh, it's not running. There you go. So for the first time, we were also trying to get information on, movements on single individuals, because having the tags, having the metallic tags is important, but the chances are way lower because you have to find one that belongs to a different group, and then there is a human factor willing to contact that. I cannot imagine there are many, many people, fishermen or other people that find these turtles. They never contact the people on their tags, right? But this is a really nice technique in which we can make sure that the adult that we want to know and track is actually giving us the real coordinates, the right coordinates to do so. So we also started to do that. We have tagged 9 hawksbill turtles, both in the Caribbean and the Pacific, in this initiative in the past 6 years. And this is roughly how it looks. So, turns out there is not a marked pattern in the route movements yet, right? Probably with more data, we will start looking like a right pattern. But right now, the hawksbill turtle that traveled the longest was in the top left. It was, of course, tagged in the Osa Peninsula, hung out a little bit in the Golfo Dulce, in the Gulf. It went parallel to the coast, to the Pacific coast, and it ended up in the second peninsula. We have previous data also before of young juvenile hawksbill that crossed from Ecuador to Nicaragua. So they should also cross in that area. And so this is probably one of the routes that they have. Here in the low map, we can see most of the turtles that remain in the Gulf, right? So there is as I said, there's some rocky areas. They can feed there, they can stay there, probably reproduce, we don't know. But in some of them eventually go to Panama, to the Panamanian side, and go back. So none of these individuals yet have reached Panama further than this in order to get to Coiba Island, for example, but we believe that they will do it eventually. The other thing with hawksbills, I don't know if some other sea turtle researchers have experienced this, but hawksbills are extremely difficult to work with GPS because they get rid of it, right? They're very sensitive in their carapaces, and whenever they feel something in it, they scrub themselves, they rub themselves like in rocks, and also as protection when they go to sleep at night, they go into cavities, they go into caves. So we lose a lot of GPSs, most of them, because of that. And for example, the one in the top corner, it lasted for like 4 months, I think, and that's exactly when it stopped recording. So probably it kept moving, but we just don't know where it went after that. So it's one of those things that, well, there's nothing we can do about it. Maybe the companies, the GPS companies can make a titanium, carapace, something like that, but this is what we have right now. In the Caribbean, it's something totally different. Caribbean turtles behave different. Any sea turtle biologist can tell you populations behave different. And look how far they went, right? We released them in Santa Marta, Colombia, in the Caribbean side, and both of them, one of them in the green line swam like 1,400 kilometers in like 2 weeks. And the other one in blue went to a little bit above Curacao in the islands, in the Virgin Islands, Caribbean, in 2 or 3 weeks and almost 4,000 kilometers. So the difference is immense. Some of our strategies that we pursue in all of these different places is citizen science and community monitoring, right? We cannot hire a specialist. Funding-wise, it would be impossible for us. So what we do is we rely on the community. And someone mentioned before, they are the best people to do this. They know their territory and their species better than anyone. So why not just do, training them in order to do that? And they can combine the local knowledge, the traditional ancestral knowledge with scientific methods. So what we use, actually, it's an app. It is called Survey 123 that works with RGIS, a GPS company, huge GPS company. And so they take the data digitally in their phones, and these phones, of course, has a GPS. So they save the location of every event with different information. And when they get back to the station with access to internet, all of that information goes to the cloud, and then we can have access from everywhere in the world that we are. That's a very nice opportunity that we have had, and they are great. They're better than us. Biological monitoring, what I mentioned with GPS transmitters, we have done it. We intend to do it in the future. These results hopefully will help us to understand what are the totality of the area, right? Ecologically speaking, it's important for us to know where they nest to protect that area, but also to protect the areas where they feed, where they produce, where they go and fulfill all its ecological needs. So this is something that we really appreciate. It's really valuable information. It's very expensive, but we're working on that. Livelihoods, it's important. In every of those sites that we work, we make sure that we help every community to try to find a livelihood, like a way of living with conservation. My colleague mentioned it, and we like this saying very much. Nobody does conservation with hunger, right? Especially if the resources are there and they're going to have a compensation because they can exchange it. So if they have jobs based in conservation, that would be ideal. Then we can work with it. Every community is different. Some of the communities are starting to receive tourists, and they can make a sea turtle tour. They can do some hatching release with them, where they can charge the tourists for, and in that exchange, they see a direct benefit. So that, of course, they can see the benefit right away, and they're encouraged to do it. Some of the sites like Mexico, the Mexican government has actually stipends for conservationists like this. So we do the paperwork, we apply, and we get this, and the government pays them, pays like a little stipend, but that's enough for them to be also encouraged to keep doing. So every place is different, and it should be just a matter of brainstorming and finding a way to link conservation with a better livelihood. As I mentioned before, the recognition of indigenous ancestral knowledge is important for us, basically because this is the main force of our initiative. They are the owners of these resources, legally speaking. Most of the areas that we work with are legally recognized by the government as their territories. So that doesn't mean that they're independent, but the government needs to have consultation, needs to have special permits in order to do that, and this is great. Governance and territory, that is basically what ICT has been doing for a number of years. We make sure that every territory that we work with, every community has, the tenure land had actually rights in order to do this, and this is mainly the core for ACT in all its work. I want to finish with saying that some of the communities have gone more steps ahead, and actually they don't need us that much in terms of showing the data, understanding the data, and analyzing the data. Some of the sites like Mexico, the Sonoran Desert, are already giving presentation in sea turtle forums and sea turtle congresses in order to do that, because it's them who take the data, it's them who analyze the data, and it's them who present it. So I think for me that is the best result of all, because when you can cover the whole cycle of it, then you can be really good about that. And this is just an example. This is our boys and girls that are enthusiasts. Not all of them are biologists. Some of them want to be biologists because some of them are very young, but they are the experts. They know everything. They capture sea turtles in the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf of California, sorry. And of course, we give them some support. We visited them constantly. We have a coordinator there who's a biologist, and who, it's not that they do whatever they want, but they do it really good. And we, joined efforts with Western Science and recommendations. So, yeah. Also, this is a picture that we are meeting with authorities and also other NGOs in Oaxaca, Mexico. I don't know if you have heard of that. It's one of the biggest arribadas in the world. I think India and Oaxaca is like they're competing right now who has the more olive ridleys. But so it is important for us to be aware of the work that NGOs are doing, governmental agencies, and also community. We always bring people from the community because they must be aware of what's happening, and it helps us also to create a better, stronger program. This is a picture with the the Ministry of Environment of Panama and researchers. We supporting and helping, and also most of the people in this picture are rangers that work in Coiba National Park, that of course it's an island, well, it's a series of islands, archipelago actually, so they need to do the same thing that a ranger does on land, but they have to do it on the water, right? So they have to dive, they have to do a lot of these different things, and it's important for us also to be aware of what they're doing and exchange information. And finally, and as I mentioned, one of the most important things for ACT's initiative is to be one with the communities, to be one, to respect, to acknowledge the traditional and ancestral knowledge, and to do this together. This is the release of one of the two hawksbill that I showed you in a map with satellite trackers, and we did that in this community because they can know more about this, but also it's their ancestral lands, and the good care that they have done on this land has been possible to have these animals so far. So it's a great way to spread the knowledge and also continue with the importance, the cosmovision of this species for them. And yeah, as you mentioned, it's important to spread awareness. This is our Instagram account. We're very active. We post a number of different informations in there. You can just screen it if you want, or look for us, Amazon Conservation Team Costa Rica, or just Amazon Conservation Team. And if you want to make any question, feel free. And also, this is my information for any contact, possible contact. Yeah. Thank you.
Questions? Yeah. You have to come here, Nina.
First, congratulations. I was very excited to hear this talk. Very nice. And I have a curiosity. In Bahia, we have a couple things that are related to animal deities and some rituals. And I was curious to know if they have indigenous people that have rituals or animal deities that are related to the sea turtle.
Yes, part of the reason why the peoples that we work with want to work with sea turtle is because the sea turtles are already important in their cosmovision, in their worldview, right? So it's important for them in their legends, in their myths, in their daily life. There's not a single place that we have worked with that they don't have this. You know, like as Max was saying, for the Aruacos in Sierra Nevada and for the Kogis, the carapace of the hawksbill has a map, and every species has a different meaning. But in general, they have a black line, they call linea negra, the black line, which is a line that goes through all the sacred sites around their territory. And there are many forces taking care of them, protecting them from the outside. But in the ocean, it's the sea turtles that protect them from everything evil, from everything bad. So can you imagine that working, well, you were born in a family with a lot of love for sea turtles, the same thing for them. They see sea turtles in a totally different way than another person that has not had that experience. So when they have that embedded in their minds, it's just easy to make them work with us, or you know. But for everyone in the Comcac, in the desert, Sonoran Desert, actually one turtle created the world. So can you imagine that? I mean, what is the biggest thought of a sea turtle that they created the world that they're standing in? So all of them have beautiful, beautiful myths.
Other questions, remarks? Yes, you have one?
I have I'm wondering here if you also hit political barriers to do your work in Costa Rica or other countries, and how you managed to go around them.
Yeah, of course, and this is what networking and working together is important, because I always think, and I will say, Latin America is a big country divided in sub-states with different languages or different things, but we have the same problems. We face the same thing. Fishing, for example, as we saw in the previous presentation, is causing a great damage to the sea turtle, especially the leatherbacks, right? Fishing is also a problem in Costa Rica, and right now we are struggling to do that. But if you go by yourself, even as an individual or as an organization, you have less echo. If you go with a number of different organizations all together to push the government, it's easier, right? But I suggest that, well, I strongly believe that scientific data should be always the foundation of the work, along with all of the different things. But why? Because when we come to this kind of problem, it's scientific data is the only language that government can listen to or can actually, act on. And a very small example is that in the area that we work, I show you with this incredible nesting importance for hawksbill, government was granting permission to create hotels, like a big resort in there, right? It was because of the data we had, along with data from whale and dolphin researchers, from a local fisherman researcher, from, I don't know what else, sea snake specialist. So we gathered all this different information. We created a document and said, look at the place that you want to build on. Look how important it is. And it was because of this and a lot of political pressure that we could actually stop it. But that wouldn't be the case if we didn't have such strong information. So I'm not saying it's most important. I think it's equally important, and it helps you depending on what the threat is.
So if there are no more questions, we have some fun last activity. We want to ask you to take a piece of paper, write your name on it, and it will, maybe you will be the lucky winner of one of these sea turtles that are gifted by Proyecto Tamar from Nina. So please take a piece of paper. My colleague will come by to collect your piece of paper in a bag. She has a bag there with her. I think everybody has a piece of paper with them. No? We'll share paper, yes? for the people who have paper with them. You're only allowed one piece of paper in the back. Uh-oh. So my colleague there, she has some paper, some extra paper for people who don't have paper. Anybody needs paper? Linda has paper. Yes.
Oh, thank you. Here you go. Anybody else need paper? Yeah. Anybody else? Paper? Everybody got paper? That's it?
Dania, so everybody put their piece of paper in there, and then Nina, where are you? No, you pull your gifts. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, she put it. She's walking around. She will come. Yeah, she's a bit back. I think a bag. I'm not sure what's in it. Everybody has put their little piece of paper in the bag? Yes? Then, Geneviève, I would like to invite you, and you can shake the bag and hold it for Nina so that she can... So the first one is going to be the hawksbill turtle.
Scientific name?
The scientific name is Eretmochiles imbricata.
Eretmochiles imbricata.
Okay, so Nina, who's the lucky winner?
Rocho.
So then we go to the leather bag. Then we have the carreta. Carreta is loggerhead.
It's me. I promise I'm not choosing.
Yeah, small piece. Yeah. So this is the olive Ridley. Bjorn with ACT.
Get back to the office,
Celebrity Bjorn.
Okay, the last one.
And the last one is the green turtle.
Yes, Monique is gonna pull Helonia Midas. No. Morgana, you live in Brazil. You should give yours and I'll give you one later, okay? Okay. Ramrao. Yes. No, I promise I'll give you one. And this is it, you guys. You are all invited to go to Bahia, Brazil, and visit our project, and I'll be around too. And thank you very much, Monique. This week has been just, Suriname is one of the most amazing places with the most amazing peoples, nature peoples.
Thank you. So with that, we end our morning session. We have chosen not to have a lunch for you. We will give you just 2 hours time break. You can just go somewhere, come back in the afternoon. We made that choice because we've brought some amazing people in, and that was already a lot of money. So we hope you don't mind that you need to go out for a little bit, stretch your legs, and come back at 2 o'clock. Thank you. It's only 1 hour.